Today's screencast will be about instructional rounds. Instructional rounds is actually a practice adapted to education from the field of medicine. It embodies a specific set of ideas about how practitioners can work together to solve common problems and improve their practice. In the educational context, it is designed to help schools and districts support high-quality teaching and learning for all students. Instructional Rounds allows educators to build collaborative networks where they can learn from one another about improving teaching and learning. Instructional rounds are one of the most valuable tools that a school or district can use to enhance teachers' pedagogical skills and develop a culture of collaboration. The goal of instructional rounds isn't to provide feedback to the teacher that's being observed, although this is an option if the observed teacher so desires. The primary purpose is for observing teachers to compare their own instructional practices with those of the teachers they observe. The chief benefit of this approach resides in the discussion that takes place among observing teachers at the end of the observation, as well as in subsequent self-reflections. Teachers should participate in instructional rounds at least once a trimester, and a half-day sub can be provided each time. Rounds should be facilitated by a lead teacher, a TOSA, or a grade level or department chair. Sometimes administrators may also lead rounds, but it's important to clarify from the outset that the purpose is not to evaluate the teacher that's being observed. Gathering a set of classrooms to observe will need to be organized in advance. The observed teachers can either volunteer or be asked to be the subject of rounds. Ideally, selected teachers are drawn from the pool of teachers who have expertise in a specific area or a proven ability to enhance the achievement of all students in their classes. This noted, any teacher might offer his or her classroom as a venue for rounds. Understanding the rules for instructional rounds is vital for long-term success of the process. It should be noted that the purpose of this process is for an individual teacher's self-reflection and learning. It is important to respect that the observed teachers have graciously agreed to open their classrooms for the betterment of learning by all. Observers should not share what they have observed or any comments that occur during the debriefing to anyone outside of the instructional rounds group. Also, they should not offer suggestions to the teachers who were observed unless specifically asked by those teachers. Being respectful of these rules is extremely important to the instructional rounds process. Groups conducting rounds are best kept small, from 3 to 5 teachers, not counting the lead teacher. On the scheduled observation day, observing teachers should enter each classroom they visit and quietly move to the back of the classroom to some spot that doesn't disrupt the flow of instruction. There, they observe and take notes regarding the teacher's use of specific instructional strategies. On an individual level, teachers can watch for strategies of particular interest to them, such as how the teacher uses questioning strategies or graphic organizers, or the observation may have a common focus set by the group prior to the rounds. For example, for one set of rounds, a school might decide that everyone will examine how a teacher communicates instructional objectives to students and keeps these objectives in the forefront of students' minds throughout the lesson. With focus areas identified, observing teachers record what they see during the 10 to 15 minutes that the round typically lasts. Observing teachers do not score or evaluate teachers being observed. Rather, they take notes on teachers' behaviors that relate to the observation focus for that day. After each instructional round, members of the observing team convene to reflect on their experiences. They can do this in a round-robin format, with each teacher commenting on what he or she noted. The leader starts by reminding everyone of the rules of the instructional rounds and that the purpose of the discussion is not to evaluate the observed teacher. As observing teachers take turns commenting, it's helpful to use a pluses and deltas format. An observing teacher begins by noting the positive things, pluses, that he or she saw, and then speculates as to what produced that positive outcome. For example, the observing teacher might postulate that the classroom appeared well managed because the students were aware of specific routines they were to use, such as raising their hands when asking a question and quietly transitioning from one activity to another. The observing teacher might suggest that students seemed highly engaged because the teacher maintained a lively pace and used quite a bit of humor. Next, the observer mentions some questions or concerns, deltas, that he or she has about the observed teacher's use of strategies. For example, he or she may wonder why the observed teacher stayed in front of the class the entire time. At this point, other observing teachers might add their thoughts, sharing their pluses and deltas. For any given observation, an observing teacher can opt not to share his or her analysis with the group. Instructional rounds end with observing teachers identifying instructional practices they'll continue to use because they saw other teachers employing them effectively, practices they currently use that they will now re-examine in light of what they observed, and practices they don't currently use but will try because they saw other teachers using them well. The instructional round strategy is a process to identify effective learning and teaching. It is an opportunity to investigate a problem of practice and learn how to improve. Ultimately, the goal is to build collaboration to create coherence across classrooms and schools. It is an opportunity for teachers to learn from each other to improve their own practice. This concludes the information about instructional rounds. Consider it an option for professional development.